My name is Shirey. I'm a regional director out of Denver, Colorado, and I would like to talk to you today about some tools you can use to improve your software quality, the development of your software quality today. You know, Visual Studio Team System is coming down the line here, and there's a lot of excitement about it. It's got some tools and techniques built in and integrated with Visual Studio, but you can actually do these things today with tools that are out there: static analysis, unit testing, your test code coverage, your scripting for your builds, and actually having a build server where your build can be done automatically. So I'm going to start off with a tool that I think everybody should be using. It's called FXCOP. You can find it on got.net. And what it is a tool that takes a look at your assemblies, and it will start to bang those up against the best practices that have been identified for writing .NET code. It's a great tool because it's really easy to use. Basically, all you have to do is point it at an assembly and run it, and it will start to take a look at all of the things around security best practices within your code, naming conventions that Microsoft's identified as its coding guidelines. It will look for things where you might have performance issues in your code, and it's just looking at the code itself against these best practices. Another nice thing about this tool is that you don't have to do everything that it says. You may have your own best practices, you may have your own standards, so you can actually ignore things, or you can even extend them. So you can actually write your own best practices and put it within the tool. But for somebody that is doing nothing, all you have to do is just run it against your assemblies, and you will get a report that tells you, here's some things that you should be doing. I think it's a great learning tool for people as they're learning .NET, for them to be able to start taking pieces of code and helping to understand where are the things that I could be doing differently that's going to make my code that much better. So I've got the link up here for it. I think it'd be great for you to go take a look at it. When VSTS comes out, it's actually integrated. It'll actually be part of the warnings and errors you'll see in your code, and you can create bugs and tasks. So it's a great tool. The next tool is one I'm very passionate about. It's one called NUnit, and it's a tool that you can use to write unit tests, or basically it's a unit test harness or a wrapper around your classes that you have in .NET. This one probably takes a little bit more work for you as you start integrating it into your development process, but the payoff is well worth it. So what you can do is you write separate classes that will actually be tests over your other classes. And you will, over time, start building a whole library of these unit tests that you can use and run over and over and over again. And you never have to test these things by hand again. It's a great point for regression testing. So over time, you're going to be changing your code. You're going to be doing new things in your code, adding new functionality, making bug fixes. And every time you make a fix, it's great to just rerun all of those unit tests that you've run before. There are a couple of tools that you can actually work well with this that I'd recommend looking at. TestDriven.net's an add-in for Visual Studio, so you can actually run these things right from within Visual Studio. NUnit ASP is a way to do ASP.NET pages, so I recommend taking a look at those. One other thing that I think is kind of a misperception out there is that the unit test, the automated unit testing, is an Agile-related thing, and that's actually not true. It is for any methodology. Whether you're just coding something or you're doing a huge rational unified process type methodology, the unit testing NUnit is a great tool to add. I've got the link there for it if you want to look at it. The next one is kind of a companion tool to NUnit. It's called NCover. It's a tool that will actually take a look at your unit tests and tell you which of the pieces of your code actually haven't been tested. So it's not a panacea. So one thing that people look at is they say, I'm doing 90% code coverage, so I've got 90% tests. So the one thing that I always tell people is that it'll tell you what things have been tested, but won't tell you if they've been tested well. So you really need to understand how to write good unit tests. But this will tell you which parts of the code have actually been tested. I think it's a great place if I were to take over a large system that I was going to maintain and didn't have any tests. It would be a great place for me to start taking a look over time of how much of that code and how much of that system is actually being tested. So if I was just going to over time add tests to a system. I'm going to take a look at the next one here. NANT. So NANT is a build scripting mechanism. Basically, you can create a script that will actually do your compile and build for your application. A couple of nice things about NANT. One is that you don't actually need Visual Studio.NET to actually create an executable or DLL. You can do it with NANT. All you need is the framework SDK on whatever machine you're going to do that build. It's also based on XML, so you can change things in your build fairly rapidly. So you can change what the target, instead of going from debug, you can go to a production build. You can change your target servers. The nice thing about its scriptability is that you can start to create tasks. And so when you do your build, it's not just like a normal compile in Visual Studio.net. You can start to do things like, say, I want to automatically run an FX cop every time I do a build. I want to run all of my unit tests when I do my build. You can actually do things like, when I do my build, I want to refresh my database with my standard empty database or a set of reference data, run all my unit tests, run an FX cop, check things back into my source control so that I can mark that build with that date. So if I ever have to go back to it, I know what that build was with that label or tag on the source that you have in your source control database. NANT is very extensible. You can write your own NANT tasks. It's very easy to write tasks that just call things out from the operating system, command line type activities. It's also very easy to write things and extend it with .NET. I've known people who use NANT tasks to do BizTalk things. I've known people who've used NANT to do SharePoint tasks, like to provision out new Windows SharePoint services sites, because that was part of the build process that they were working on. A great tool, and this kind of brings it all together, is a tool called cruisecontrol.net. So what it is it's kind of a build server process. So you take your build scripts and you put them in cruisecontrol.net, and what it does is it runs it automatically for you, and it'll manage and monitor that process. So a lot of people have heard of the nightly build. So you can set it up so every night I do a build. What we do is we call continuous integration, or Martin Fowler coined that term. And every time somebody checks something into source control, it monitors that change, and as soon as that change happens, it will actually redo the build. It'll rerun through the static analysis. It'll rerun through all the unit tests every time somebody checks in code. And so you can start to think about that in a little bit with the quality of the solutions that you're building, because you're checking that quality every time you change the code. It's great when you have team environments. We've got it set up with a WAV file on the build server, so it has a nice WAV file, and then we have the Dilbert gopher land as everybody pops their heads up whenever we have a break in our build. If things break, you can do things like WAV files, but you can do other things. You can push out emails, you can send SMSs, whatever you'd like to do. It's open source, so you can actually change it. The other thing is that you have a log of everything that's happened in all of your builds. So you can go back and see what's happening with your development process over time. And it's all web-based, so I can go into the web page and see those log files, see the history of my builds. I think that the tools and techniques that are presented here are things that are great for doing today. When VSTS ships and releases, you can actually take the processes, the techniques that you would apply using these tools, and they're going to go straight into Visual Studio Team System. So I would encourage you, if you're doing development today, to take a look at these tools, to try and get up to speed on these tools, and then when VSTS ships, you're going to be ready for Team System. I appreciate your time. Thanks.
All right, good job, Greg.